Hey guys, Charles from Halt's Boots here, and today we are looking at the Adidas Copa Gloro, a boot that has actually surprised me a lot since I've been wearing them, and for how cheap they are, they might honestly be Adidas' best leather boot. Alright guys, so we are looking at the Adidas Copa Gloro, and right off the bat, we can just check some stuff out here. I went with my size 9, and sometimes I go with an 8.5 in leather boots, sometimes I do a 9. This time I went with a 9, just to see how it goes, I guess. I haven't worn the Copa Gloro ever, I want to say. I do have a few pairs in my collection, which I'll show you in a minute, but it's not a boot that I've ever worn personally, just because I never ended up wearing them. So if we go ahead and unbox them here, it's nothing special. I just went with the black colorway. I just saw them at a local soccer shop and I bought these, I want to say almost 3 months ago now, maybe even a bit longer. And I just keep pushing back this review just because new stuff keeps coming out, or I find other pairs I want to review, but no bag or anything like that in the box. And these did retail at $100 US. I think maybe I got these a little bit cheaper. I don't quite remember. Actually, no, I paid more because of sales tax in Michigan, which kind of sucks. But the Copa Gloro is going to be the equivalent to the Nike Premier, the 442 Team, which is the cheaper version of the New Balance 442, the Puma King, and I don't know any brand off the top of my mind that has another, like, I don't want to say takedown leather boot, but you know, just a cheaper leather boot, I guess is what we're going to call this. So go ahead and move that box out of the way. Now, looking at these, they do have the fold-over tongue just like the Premier 3 has, except these have the elastic Adidas tongue, which were made popular by Beckham on all the Adidas Predators. So I believe several of these Gloros actually had tongues. I know, like, I have a pair of these 17.2s here, and these have the tongue. So I think most of them did, if not all of them. Now, I absolutely hate how the tongues look on these, and I should have picked a better colorway because it's a little bit hard to see on the camera, but they have all these like crisscross stitching on the tongue here, and it kind of just reminds me of a quilt and doesn't look that great, to be honest. It does have the same, where's it at here? The same scissor mark that the Premier 3 had, and if you saw my Premier 3 video, you know I cut the tongue off, or the fold-over tongue off on the Premier 3, because I just do not like the tongues at all. This time I will keep the tongue on, but just wanted to show you guys there that both brands have added this little dash and cut mark for, like, even the scissor mark, just to show you can cut the tongue if you don't like the tongue. So don't know if I will this time, just to really get an entire feel for what the boot is supposed to be. I felt a little bit bad that I did it last time on the Premiers, but honestly not that bad because it worked out better in my opinion. Now, a little bit of history on the Gloro. It was actually its own line in 2016. So it actually follows the 11 Pro 3, which is my favorite boot and the boot I have so many pairs of and collect heavily. So it was just kind of interesting that they decided to get rid of its own line. Now here is what the model looked like. I have a really beat up pair. I think I bought them on eBay for 10 bucks that somebody just didn't know what kind of boot they were selling, but it's also just kind of destroyed. So it was a deal I couldn't pass up. Haven't worn these yet because I think that the 16.1s, which are these, are in my size are an 8.5. And then I do have these really cool my Adidas back when they were still customizing boots like Nike does. And I bought these from a friend as well. So I did not customize these, but they have a little American flag, you know, the red, white, and blue. So had to pick those up. They're in my size. Will I ever wear these? Maybe, but probably not. Just kind of wanted to show you the similarities. And they actually still share the same sole plate. So this is the new Copa Gloro, which it's just the Copa Gloro. There's no 17.2, or it's not a 0.2 model of anything. It's just the Copa Gloro. And then these ones have the same exact sole plate. And I guess, again, it's a little bit hard to tell. And then even the 17.2 has it. So I think every pair of Copa Gloros has this sole plate. I could be wrong because I don't have every pair on hand, but it's just what I'm assuming. And you know, this isn't a bad sole plate. It's very similar to the layout of the 11 Pro 3, except it just has all conical studs. They're a lot smaller, there's a lot fewer studs. So it almost reminds me of like the Ace 16.1 and the 17.1, or even the Plus models had a lot of just spread out studs. So that's pretty cool too. Now, I think the entirety of the upper of this boot is leather, and even under the tongue, maybe not back here, is leather. And just if this tongue piece is leather here, it kind of feels like a little bit of waste of material if you're telling people you can cut this off. but who am I to judge? And I don't think it would matter if this part's if this part of the upper or tongue is leather, because you're not gonna be able to feel all the way through your foot versus like in the toe box here if you're taking a touch on the ball or hitting the ball or passing or whatever. So who knows? You know, it's not K leather either, but that's okay. Kangaroo leather is definitely more expensive, a higher quality, but for $100, you're getting a pretty quality calfskin upper, and you know, you really just don't see leather on boots below the price tag of $100 usually. So it's not something we can really complain about. And you know, I wouldn't necessarily say this is a budget boot. I think that maybe if you're someone who enjoys the Copa Mundial, but you no longer can get them and you want to switch to still another leather boot, this is around the same price. It's actually cheaper because I think the Mundials are $150. And you know, maybe you're just somebody who wants a leather boot but doesn't really care that much if it's K leather, doesn't care that much overall about boots. I think it's a good choice. So not a boot I would personally pick just because I like K leather a bit more, but it's definitely a boot that I'm gonna try out, and I might cut the tongue off just to see how they perform without the tongue versus with the tongue. So my last thoughts before we go into the on-feet portion, and I wear these for a week or two, I think this tongue is very ugly. I hate that it looks like a quilt. I don't know why they added all the extra stitching there. Maybe just throw one across instead of crisscrossing it. I don't think it's a good design. Like I said, I will leave the tongue. I don't think I'm gonna cut it off right away. And if I decide that I just don't like this tongue, or I feel like it's getting in the way, or maybe I just, for whatever reason, cut the tongue off, I'll cut the tongue off and kind of go from there and let you guys know how that is. So these may or may not have the tongue when we come back. And I'm really just curious how these are gonna stack up against the Nike Premier 3. So with the Nike Premier 3, I personally felt that they were, the Tiempo, just not quite as high of quality, and for $110 they were good. Now these are gonna be hopefully comparing to the Copa Pure, since these came out around the same time as the Copa Pure. And I don't know how these will stack up against the Premier 3s, so definitely interested in that as well. Just how these will compete with other boots, and eventually I will wear the 442s, both of the Pro and the Team version, to see how I like those as well. But generally I just want to see, is it worth spending $10 less to get the Copa Gloro, or should I just go with the Premier 3, which feels like a Tiempo and it's only $10 more expensive than these? So that's just what I'm looking for. I'm going to now, over the next week and a half, get these on my feet, get some training sessions under my belt, maybe play some pickup in them, just see how I like these boots. So I tested these boots out over the last week and a half, and I only wore them 3 or 4 times, but let me tell you, that was more than enough. I didn't have any real issues with these boots, and I'll kind of talk you guys through everything when we go through the tech specs, but I'm gonna say that this might be Adidas' best leather boot, and I said that in the intro, but it really surprised me. And just kind of going through everything, I think you guys will understand where exactly I'm coming from. So starting with the sole plate, as always, this is the Copa Gloro sole plate that they've been doing since the 16.1. It was on the 17.2 Gloro, 18.2 Gloro, 19.2 Gloro, the Copa Sense Gloro, and now we just have the Gloro on its own. And it's a really nice sole plate. It's very conical. It is very similar to the Adidas 11 Pro 3 sole plate, although it's differently shaped. It's super flexible, and it's very soft. So it reminds me of the Premier 3, Premier 2 sole plate, where it just has a ton of give, and it's not that nylon that normal boots sole plates are made out of. So it's actually like a nylon plastic, that hard plastic that all sole plates are. And we don't have that with these, so it was not something that I enjoyed that much, having sole plates that have give like this. I really like a firm sole plate, and it wasn't the end of the world. It still performed really well on grass and on turf in terms of, you know, just traction, movement, stuff like that. But definitely one of the downsides of this boot is how, not like spongy, but it's just like really soft. And it's kind of hard to explain without actually feeling it, but it's just not quite what I'm looking for. We're gonna move to the upper right away, and it's a full calfskin leather upper, including the tongue. And it's not that really soft, plush K leather that we get on really nice exotic leather boots like Mizuno's, Adler's, and some of the older Adidas stuff, but it held its own. I will say it stayed pretty soft, pretty comfortable, and I didn't have any real issues with the upper at all in terms of discomfort or anything like that. I felt pretty well connected to the ball overall. And it was kind of weird having a tongue over top the boot, so you can see here, and I didn't notice it though, so I just
more mean it's weird just kind of thinking that you have a tongue over your laces, but when you play, I didn't notice it at all. I didn't feel like it affected my play. This elastic band that goes on the bottom there didn't bother me at all. So that was actually kind of pretty cool. So another issue I have with boots, a lot of the time, is this extra leather stitching up here I can sometimes feel underneath the boots, especially when you have seams like this or this. I really felt that with the leather Speed Portal 99 gram. However, even though these boots have tons of stitching in them, didn't feel that at all. So that's just another nice aspect of this boot, is that they're very, very comfortable. And the connection with the ball felt very clean. I never had any issues with that. You know, you have this tongue coming down over top, but honestly, no problem there. So if that's something you're worried about, you don't have to. Now, with the lockdown, you do have a little bit of extra space right here, and that's normally where a tongue or one-piece upper would cover your foot. That's not the case because you have an elastic band pulling the tongue forward. Now, I didn't really think it made a difference, and at the end of the day, the laces will hold the tongue back like this and kind of just put a little bit more pressure and strain on that elastic band, but it helps keep everything in place. Now on turf, I did feel like the heel lockdown isn't the best whenever backpedaling, shifting side to side. I had a lot of really just weird feelings that like I was gonna roll my foot or my ankle, and sometimes I just feel like I come down really hard on boots and it just hurts the sides of my heel. And I don't know if that's just a personal issue or problem I have, but it did feel a little bit weird at times on turf if I was doing any like high impact landing or anything like that. However, for the most part, I didn't really have any issues while on turf, and I didn't really feel like my feet slide that much. It's kind of just in that back heel area that I sometimes feel like, I don't know if it's a lockdown issue, but it was definitely a little bit uncomfortable. But overall, if you're worried about slipping out of these boots, that's not something that's gonna happen either. I was nervous in picking my size for these, and that's just because I kind of flew between an 8.5 and a 9 in Adidas leather boots. But for the Copa Pure, both in the 0.1 and the Plus version, I went with a 9, and that did me well. So I did the same thing, and it more or less was the same size and same fitting. Now, there was a little bit of extra room in the toe, but it was negligible and just not enough to really make a big deal out of it or anything. But I do feel like if I could have gotten an 8.75 in these and just they would have kept the same width as the 9, that would have been the perfect fit. But beggars can't be choosers when you have weird feet. So I went with the size 9. So my recommendation is whatever you wear in Adidas leather boots like the Copa, I guess those are the only real leather boots on the market right now, get a 9. I mean, even if you wear a 9 in these Speed Crazy Fast or whatever other Adidas boots are out there, you can wear the same size in these. Now, what I would argue makes these one of the best leather boots out there, and even for Adidas and up there with the Copa Pure, is just the comfortability, man. I pulled these out of the box, put them on, no pain, no blisters, no arch pain, no hot spots, no feeling like they weren't wide enough, nothing like that. I had no issues. It was like I'd been wearing these boots for a few months. And that kind of made me angry, not because these boots were doing so well, but why can't we have that with Copa Pures? Why am I paying $225 for a pair of boots that, you know, they're comfortable and they break in fairly quickly, but I can just pay $100 and these will break in immediately. So I don't know what the deal is on that, but honestly, if you're someone who's just looking for a good pair of leather boots, you don't want to spend a lot of money, Copa Gloros probably is going to be the best fitted boot for you. And I mean that in the best way possible. Even with the Nike Premier, it felt like a cheaper version of the Tiempo, but this feels just like a elite version of Copas. I mean, they're not gonna be something as soft as the 11 Pro 3, a Mizuno, a Adler, but it's still super comfortable. The leather is not very hard. It's still kind of soft, and it's a more comfortable shape. I feel like the Copa Pure is a bit more narrow, and these feel not super wide, but you know, not narrow either, and it kind of just fit my wide foot great, and overall just hugged my foot, and everything was not quite perfect, but about as close as you can get for a boot that's not K-leather. One last thing before my final thoughts, the durability on these boots appears to be very, very nice as well. Now, I only wore them, like I said, for 4 sessions, so maybe I clocked 4.5, 5 hours max on these, but I'm seeing no signs of sole separation anywhere. The elastic bands are in there pretty secure. There's no damage to the sole plate. There's not even really stud wear. So I gotta say, $100, they're super comfortable, they're really durable. There's really no reason everybody shouldn't at least have a pair of these, at least to try or coach or ref or just, you know, have a relaxed day out on the pitch just kicking a ball around. They're that good. And for my final thoughts, the only real thing I would change about these boots has to be, you know, can I just get a more stiff sole plate? I don't like how it's very just malleable, and it almost, this doesn't quite feel like hard plastic. If I could get that heel lockdown thing fixed, that was just a little bit off-putting at times. And then if we could get a pair of these in K-leather, honestly, if they made these in just straight K-leather that was super, super soft, I would probably wear these a lot more than pretty much any other boot that I wear besides maybe the 11 Pro, because they're that comfortable. And you know, that lands them a rating of 8.3. And for a $100 boot, they're classified in the cheap category for, I guess, a top end boot. I don't really know if you consider these top end, but that's pretty dang good, an 8.3. So whether you're just balling on a budget, whether you just want a pair of cheap leather boots, if you're a boot head, if you're someone who enjoys leather boots, pick a pair of these up. They're about $100. You can probably find them a little bit cheap or discounted on some of the major retailers at times. And I honestly think there's no reason people shouldn't be trying this boot out. And that's all I have today. So if you like this video, if you like football boot reviews or other cool videos about boots, make sure to check out our YouTube channel. Give us a subscribe and some likes. It really helps us out a lot. And with that, I'll see you guys in the next video.